Alina, this book is something else. Every she's saying, she's saying that the things that that stand out to you, the things that you want to repeat, and all of these things into your life. Listen,
everything stands out.
So I break it down into portions that I can manage.
This really was transformative.
Hi, good evening, and welcome to Book Club Conversations, Series 6, where we are chatting about the book, The Uncommon Achiever, written by Mike Murdock, because we're really getting into it and we're bringing all things out as we discover what we have on the inside of us and how we could use the principles that Mike Murdock has encouraged to become that achiever. My name is Alina Lewis, and joining me this evening is Simone Nickham. How do you do that, Simone?
Good evening, Alina, and good evening to all the uncommon achievers out there tuning in.
Definitely. And I love to ask you, Simone, what stood out in today's chapter for you?
Definitely, it was when Mike Murdock said character is a choice, and he said reputation is more powerful than money, because a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches and loving favor rather than silver and gold. So when he said that character is a choice, that stood out for me.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to ask you, because I have my little notes here, Simone, how do you develop integrity? Because that's a big question for a lot of people.
Yeah.
How do you develop integrity? And even as you think about the response, I want to take a moment to welcome our added guest, Michelle Ellis, as she joins us for conversation this evening.
How are you?
Michelle, good. We're just chatting about integrity. And I know I'm going to come back to you after to ask you what stood out for you in the chapter. But also, before we do that, Simone, how do you develop integrity? How have you applied that concept of developing integrity in your own life?
Right. So I want to start first, Alina, with a definition of integrity. And according to Wikipedia, integrity is the practice of being honest and showing a consistent and uncompromising adherence to strong moral and ethical principles and values. So it might be a little mouthful. And the thing with that is that just as it might be a mouthful, it takes time to develop it. So I would say integrity, it's a noun by definition, right? It describes a character or quality, but its power is in the demonstration of it. So integrity causes us to do something. It's something that we do. How do I develop it? I will go back to my childhood. A lot of this chapter, becoming a person of integrity, take me back to my days as a child. And I would say my parents teaching me principles and values, correcting me when I would have made a choice that lacked enough moral value to it. And it's because of a choice that I made. So how do I develop integrity? It's about how I make my choices. So I have my blueprint based on the principles from my parents in terms of determining these are the boundaries within which we live, and then me choosing to own it. But of course, to really develop it, we have to understand that, and I'm going to use a word that Mike Murdock used earlier on, character. that character is formed, it's shaped, it's chiseled, it's polished, and it keeps being sharpened by us. So for me, I developed my integrity from the teachings of my parents that I have chosen to personally adopt in terms of the choices I make in ensuring that they have a moral value to them, a moral base, so that when I do act, it is an action that has integrity behind it.
Right. Are you telling that story? And I'm thinking, and my mind went back to what I would now then call my introduction to integrity. And that introduction, I would have been, I think, maybe like 7 years old. And I don't know what the conversation was. It probably wasn't even anything. My father just had a habit of bringing in these parable type conversations into regular moments. And he said, whatever the conversation was, he said, be the same person wherever you are. And as usual, I would be confused because he always talking in these parables. I'm like, Doc, please. I mean, of course, back then I didn't say that, but in my head, that's how I felt. That, please. And so I would be like, what does that mean? And he said, when you go to school, be the same person that you are when you go to church. And when you are in church, be the same person that you are when you're home here with me and your mother. So that when wherever you are, you show up as the same person, people will trust you. And that is a good thing. You want to be the same person wherever you are. And he took it a step further and he told me, you want to remember that trust is like a vase. You see that vase your mother have on the table there? That's what trust is like. Now, if you take that vase and you throw it down on the ground, it would break, right? And I could take some glue and I could stick it and I could put it back together. And he showed me one that was broken, that was stuck and put back together. And he said, but notice when you put it back together, it have this little line. It doesn't go back all the way to how it was. That's how trust is like. So your job is to make sure that I never mistrust you. You know, that became the line. Your job is to make sure. But as funny as he made it in the end, and as simple as he broke it down, that as a 7-year-old I can grasp the concept. The whole idea is that integrity and trust go hand in hand. And when you step out of integrity, you break the trust relationship that you have with people. And that is very difficult to get back, to put back together. And even when you put it back together, it's usually never the same. So what's the goal? Understand the foundation of who you are and be that person everywhere you show up. And of course, as the years have gone by, I have unpacked that little story in every different season to mean something so much bigger, so much deeper. But even as you were telling that story, my mind reverted to my 7-year-old self when my father sat me down and said, be the same person wherever you are. So truly, Simone, the family unit does stand as a great launching pad for our understanding and our ability to embrace integrity. Michelle, even as I was reading the chapter, I smiled and I said, what day is today? I said, Michelle, come in. Michelle is going to be in her glee tonight.
Oh, yeah.
I read it and I said, oh my God, Michelle is going to be in her glee with this topic tonight. So I can't wait. Let me get you started off by asking you what stood out the most to you, Michelle, in this chapter. What was your big takeaway as Mike Murdock shared about integrity?
Reputation is more powerful than money. That, I think, that stood out for me. And I would have to say that, of course, I always talk about integrity and living my life, in this vein. So when I think of integrity, I think of a word that came to me almost 29 years ago. I was standing in the kitchen, just in the corner. I could still see the little sunflower pot holder that was in my hand. And, the Lord said to me, a good name is better than silver or gold. And that stayed, it resonated with me, because at the time I was, establishing another business, and I was there thinking, I was going to make a lot of money and I was going to do a lot of things. Uh, but that word came to me, and I started to evaluate and just, what am I really doing? And then the question of the why. What's your motive? What do you want to see happening in your own life and in the lives of the people that you're going to be selling this product and the service to? And that was a turning point for me, because prior to that, it was just businessmen making money. But I didn't know the core value, the core principle of integrity, you see. And because of that word that came to me, my life has been different ever since, right? Other things have been added on. For example, if I may, that no man having put his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for the kingdom. So I knew that the integrity involves hard work. It involved persistence. It involved, a vision of where you're going. So you have an end goal. And obviously, another one that came to me was the whole question of whatsoever your hands find to do, do it with all your might.
Yes.
So, of course, up until today, that still has me, when I'm leaving the house, I like to make sure everything is neat and organized, and I would make up the bed, and I run back and just fix maybe a throw cushion or something, because it's just that value. Whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might. You understand? If I'm making a phone call to talk to a friend, I am giving that person my time, and I'm really affirming and valuing this conversation, you see. So last week I told my daughter, I said, anytime a Trinidadian says to you, how you going, how you going? And they repeat it twice, don't even bother to answer, because they really don't want to know, you see. And I feel like integrity really has to do with your manner of being, with your ability to listen, with your ability to do, with your ability to receive, you see. Something as simple as going to the supermarket and they give you wrong change, and you say, listen, we'll take, like a guy gave me $3 at the market the other day, and then a $5 bill, and I said, what a get through, and then I just said to him, I said, how much is it really? He said 15. I said, but so you gave me $3 and then you gave me another 5. He said, oh my gosh, So he said, thanks, sir. Because you have to understand that sometimes people kind of try to palm it off as a blessing, but good and well in your heart, you understand that that is not a blessing. It may be a blessing to you, but it's going to hurt the other person. And then eventually it's going to come back to hurt you, you see, because what you reap, you sow. And so I feel like that there's this whole, vacuum, this thing that sucks you in. And you realize, Alina mentioned trust, you see, and trust for me is really something that is earned over time. But forgiveness you can give as a gift, you see, but you have to earn trust. And when you've taken years to earn the trust of others, or for others to earn your trust, you don't just break it because of $1, or break it because, you promised to call and you don't call, or you're supposed to send information and you don't send information. Because all of those things are part of what makes you understand, a person of integrity. So all of that is really just to say that a good name is better than silver or gold, right? And you could take that to the bank, because I actually live, when I'm in the East and I have to call the hardware in Mayaro, and I say, listen, deliver this, do this for me, and so on. They do it because, you know why? Because I am there. They know that they can trust me to pay my bills. I have friends that I would call to do things, and they say, don't worry about it. We will meet up after, to do whatever transactions and so on, because they trust that when my word is good, and I have earned that over the years, and I'm not just going to, let that go for, for what? So,
Yeah. And if
Yeah.
I could just share something based on what Michelle shared earlier when she spoke about, the extra cash, the get through at the market. I remember one time I was out with either my son or my daughter, and we were going into a business place, but we saw some money on the ground outside in the car park space, and along with it, a receipt. So apparently, someone may have gone to the grocery because it was a grocery receipt, and there was some change, about 50 something dollars, and the money was just there blowing. So I gathered the money and I went in, and I told the lady who was attending at customer service, I said, we just found this outside in your car park area there. And she said, okay, I will ask around, whose own it is. So I said, okay, yeah, sure. But when we were home now, um, my son said to me, but mommy, how do you know she's going to give it to the person?
mm,
How do you know she's going to ask? And I said, I don't know that. But what I do know is that when we find something, when it's not ours, we hand it in. And I said to him, just imagine if it were you, how would you feel? And I told him at the end of the day, because you know about it, you have that good feeling when you give it in. So even as I was saying at the start that even though the definition talks about it being a noun, integrity is a doing, it's a verb, it's something that you do. And
yes.
C.S. Lewis said, integrity is doing what is right, even when no one is looking or even when nobody knows, because it starts with you on the inside. You would know. And that in itself helps to build your character.
That is
Definitely.
true.
Achievers in the comment section, we want to hear from you. Don't forget to write. Tell us how you developed integrity in your journey. What does integrity mean for you? How does it show up in your life? Put it down there, clickety click, because we want to be able to read and learn from you as well. But Michelle, I want to ask you the same thing because I didn't get a chance to ask you before, which is what was that development experience in your life as it pertains to you embracing integrity? I know you shared where, you had this experience where you understood that a good name, your reputation is better than silver and gold and all of that. But in terms of you, the human, the adult, the growing person, what was that experience like for you? Was the foundation of your understanding of learning about integrity and being able to incorporate it into who you are?
Um, I would have to go to school. Yeah. I remember a lecturer saying to me, would you like to see your face on the front page of the Express newspaper or the Guardian, right? Or even the TNT, was it the TNT Mirror or something like that, she'd said. And I said, for what? She said, and that's the question. And I think in that moment, I understood what it meant to operate in integrity, you see? And it made sense to me, all of the verses that I quoted, not trying to be super spiritual or anything, but just because they are relevant to my life. They apply to what I think integrity is a very hands-on thing. It's what Nicole Simone said, it's a doing. You understand? Whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might, so that you're operating in honor. You're operating, you understand, with beyond reproach. So for me, if I have answered your question, the front page of the newspaper did it for me, because I want to be there for for something that people can celebrate, and they can say, yes, we want to mirror this thing and we want to do this way as well, you know so that we can build a better society, so that we can all be growing and learning, you see.
Yeah, thank you. I want to ask you all. Mike Murdock talked about accusations. He says people talk good things and bad things, false accusations and current assessments. And we as individuals can really tailor who we are and how we develop and how we express ourselves in the world. But I was equally as interested to find out, for both in your professional and personal life, how do you handle false accusations? Because they do happen, and sometimes it's an experience that can be very off-putting for many. Any thoughts to share on that? If you've ever had such an experience, and if yes, what do you keep in mind when handling false accusations, especially when they're made in a very public space?
If I may,
Sure.
um, Joel Osteen mentioned that, the 25% of people will like you, 25% will not like you. 25% will like you but be persuaded not to like you, right? And the other 25% will not like you, but they could be persuaded to like you. So you have, that field there to play with. And I think that when you have lived in integrity, you have operated in integrity, right? You've built that reputation. You have a solid 25% of people who will always be, rallying for you. And you only have to think about the next 25% now who will also be rallying for you, but they will be persuaded not to. But if you have your 25% base, then you don't really have to worry. Because at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is really what God knows about you and what you know about yourself, that will speak out in time. You understand? That's one. And two, if you are able to forgive those who can't see your virtue and your value, then eventually they come around. They just do. They just come around. That's
Yeah.
that's my answer. You understand?
Thank you, Michelle. Simone, any thoughts to share?
Yeah, so just to build on what Michelle said, which I agree with, um, Mike Murdock also mentioned Joseph in this chapter. And Joseph was sold as a slave by his own brothers. He went to Potiphar's house where he served as the CEO of Potiphar's business, a wealthy man. But Potiphar's wife, um, she was interested in Joseph. And Joseph, in trying to avoid her, he said, how could I do this thing to my master, your husband? He has trusted me with everything except you. You're the only thing he withheld from me. So he's trying to plead with her. And then he said, and how could I do this thing against my God? And there's a scripture that, I have embraced in Proverbs, Psalm 25, verse 21. And it's, let integrity and uprightness preserve me, for I wait on thee, O Lord. And, when I came across that scripture, I was like, wow, because the word of God is my foundation in life. And to be able really and truly to live a moral life, to live a wholesome life, to make right choices, we need the assistance of Almighty God, right? So I had made that scripture part of my life, part of my affirmation. And just recently, I was in a situation where I needed to get some information from colleagues. They were the subject matter experts. And I did, you know, all I can do, I gave advance notice. I sent gentle reminders. I tried to call, I tried to write, but I wasn't getting through to them. And, I said to myself, what am I possibly doing wrong? what approach should I use? So I said, Lord God, give me the wisdom, because I think I was getting to the point where I was beginning to feel frustrated, and I was wondering, should I just go and tell the senior person I'm getting challenges there? But within me, knowing who I am, I preferred to try to work this out as best it could. And I saw that as part of me operating in integrity. And because it made me uneasy, it was kind of like me having to say, are you operating in integrity? Is this the approach you want to use by going to that person? Or is it that maybe their concept or perspective is blurred or differs? And I said to myself, you know what, Simone? Your approach is, I am there to do my very best, and I am going to maintain that, giving of my very best and operating in wisdom, so that when this works out and we come to the end of it, you maintain your integrity. So, whereas there might have been whatever gray area, whatever um, miscommunication was happening, my perspective to maintain my integrity and avoid any accusation, or if there is an accusation or a misunderstanding, is to stand my ground and continue to operate in that same vein, so that persons will see, you know, she would always write, she would always make an attempt to X, Y, and Z. So I would say it's not something that you have to fight to get back. But if you really believe you're operating in that level of integrity, continue to do so. And what I also do, I would reach out to someone else just as a sounding board, just to see if maybe, is it my perspective? Is this, do I probably need to change how I approach this? So I don't just leave it there. I try to analyze, I try to go deeper to to really ensure that I am lining up with who I say I am, and I am really operating in integrity.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I want to use one of the comments from one of our achievers in the comment section as a pivot to ask the next question, which is Stacy said, integrity, doing the right thing every time, even if it hurts, because the truth is seldom the easiest. And using this as a question, I want to ask, what advice, recommendation, or comfort can you give to someone who would maybe tend to struggle with integrity under those circumstances when it would hurt? Because Stacey is echoing an important point. Integrity isn't always the easiest choice. Sometimes it quote unquote hurts. And for this reason, some people may veer away from the integrity type response because of the pain factor associated with it. So, what thoughts, recommendations, suggestions would you ladies have to share with persons who may experience that and struggle to stand in integrity because it feels like it's too difficult? It feels like the cost is too high. Open floor.
So can I start by saying good night, Stacy? I know Stacy from a couple years back. Nice to see you. Um, and I have a live example here. I remember when I was in the accounting field, and I would post journals, millions of dollars journals. And I entered a journal in the wrong sign. So instead of it appearing as a plus, a positive, it went in as a negative. And that would have, that skewed the whole presentation of the whole profit for that month. And when I saw it, I was like, oh no, I don't believe I did that. Because, you always try to be meticulous. And we're talking about tens of millions of dollars. But as soon as I spotted it, I knew I had to go and share it with my manager and my head of department. And because in past experiences, I own what I do. So if I do something, I take ownership of it. So although I felt bad that this had occurred, I felt better owning it. So I went in and I explained, I did this journal and it went in the wrong sign. And as fate would have it, someone else posted another journal in the wrong sign that was also millions of dollars, so that the net effect, what it ended up not being bad.
Yeah.
But my point is, even though it might seem uncomfortable to do it, when you do it, there is a lift in your spirit. There's a feeling of honesty. There's a feeling that, you know what, I walked a road that was necessary. And I believe it's in these moments when we own something that is uncomfortable that we gain much more respect.
And I think it flows into beyond that specific circumstance, it flows into your projection of who you are in other groups and other spaces as well. Because you're telling that story, and my mind actually went back to before being a full-time entrepreneur, as they like to say, when I had a job, and I remember working in HR, and I was in a meeting with a director, the accountant, and myself, and we're talking through a circumstance and we're trying to decide how to handle it. Well, a decision has to be made how to handle it, and I brought up a particular concern that was of legal consequence, that, how are we going to move forward to make this right? And I remember the director said, just lie, just tell them, da 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 da. And the accountant said, okay, cool. And I was like, sorry, what was that? That's odd. I was like, sorry, what was that, Liz? And I will tell you, this happened within my 6-month probation. So I was not offered the contract to be extended and to be to stay on. And the response from the director was, this job is not for you. You're not cut out for this. And did I feel bad? Yeah, not in an embarrassed way, just in a who's happy to not solidify the job. I wasn't an entrepreneur at the time. I didn't have a side hustle. I was a working professional. So it's like, oh crap, what on earth is this? Is this the business world at the higher levels? I need to be prepared to lie to the ministries of whoever and whoever. Wow. And it was sad. It was a really sad time for me, actually, because it really brought me face to face with a reality of what it meant to hold management positions in many companies. And it was very sad to think about the upward mobility and how often I'm going to have to bounce into my director telling me just lie, because that was an issue. I wasn't going to be able to help with that. And so I didn't secure the contract. This job is not for you. And do I have a great story to tell what happened after? No, I did not get to keep the job. But I changed, because I learned to walk. I learned in that moment what it really meant to walk in what you believe. You see, before that moment, I just believed it. But my belief was never challenged. I was never required to act on that belief. because I was never in a position before to be told when the people from the ministry come, just lie, leave out those documents, put those away, bring out these, and just tell them that. I was never given such an instruction before.
It's the power of
And
the vase.
oh yeah,
Alina, it's a vase. It's a vase.
oh yeah. And you know what? The reality is the rest of people in my life outside of the workplace would not have known. So it wasn't about, oh, what if people find out I told a lie or I manipulated a situation on work? Because that clearly in that particular organization was something that was celebrated. But it was a personal decision for me, and what it became is a posture of self that filtered in a deeper way in the rest of my life. So now, as a business owner, when I'm working in projects, when I'm collaborating with people, that's a big deal. Just today, I'll be honest, I was having a conversation with a colleague today, and I was saying, I am challenged when people say one thing and do another. That really scratches me real bad. And and we're talking about how to navigate and how to still be supportive when you meet people who are maybe not so good at doing what they say they're going to do or how they say they'll do it. And because in life we want to make sure we are a support to the people that are around us, because it's not about judgment. At least for me, it's not. It's about understanding that everyone is in a different place, and how they learn to express themselves and how they learn to show up in the world would vary based on past experiences and what's in front of them. And I believe that we need to be understanding of that. Different people are in different places in their journey. So we were kind of talking along those lines. But as I said that, it reminded me, it sunk in so deep. It's a thing for me. If I say this is equality of what we're going to create, it's very important that we do the best of our ability to create that, because for me, that's part of the integrity. That's part of the expression. That's part of the trust. So then when Alina shows up and say, here, what this is what we're going to do, you're not worrying, creating a plan B because you ain't sure if Alina going to show up or she's going to make it happen. No, because what I say, it is what it is. What you see is what you get. And that for me, I value that. And by losing that job, it really showed me how much I valued it, because I did not go along and I didn't participate in that. I excused myself from that organization, of that situation. I excused myself from it because I did not want to be a part of it. That is not who I am. And even though they celebrated it and the rest of my world would have never known about it, I knew about it. And that was important for me. So sometimes there are lovely stories like what Simone told, where she stood her ground and she took accountability. And there was not necessarily a major negative consequence. For me, I stood up, there was a major negative consequence, but no matter what it is, at the end of the day, we have a choice to make. Are we going to stand in a place of expressing and embodying integrity? Michelle, what about you? What reflections would you be able to share with a person who struggles with the potential pain or fallout from standing in integrity?
Well, I agree with Simone when she says you have to take ownership. And Alina, your story just now really fell in line with whatsoever your hands find to do, do it with all your might, But I want to add as well, how you do anything is how you do everything. So I would say that you have to look at your core value system, right? And when you look at your core value system and you're operating in authenticity, right? You're operating in the will of God, then you will do what the old people say you have to do. And, I'm using the quote, the old people. They say you look left and you look right, but did you look up? You see? And so when you operate from your core, right, then it's easy to make decisions because you don't think about, there's really no pain. There was really no pain in your leaving, you understand? And there was really no pain in your going to tell, listen, I made an error, because deep inside you knew that that was the right thing to do, you understand? And that compensates for, for everything else. And really people think there's a fallout and they think about this, and there really isn't anything beyond what is important and of value to you. So you prioritize people, right? You put value on things, and then you operate from your very core. And that, I think, is operating in integrity. You see, um, and after that, everything else just becomes um, a life experience. So you're able to share it like you're sharing now, but you're still happy because you are fulfilled because you're doing the right thing. And you know that you're doing the right thing. And then other people want to be in on this, because you don't have to, when you go to sleep, you don't have to worry if the tables will turn, if they will find out, what you didn't cover, and so on. You sleep very soundly, right? Because life is not, you see, I think people have to understand that life is not really about bread and butter and the hustle and all of those different things that we try to, to use as an excuse for doing the wrong thing, or for finding themselves in situations that I just needed to do it. If you examine your core, you will see that you were operating out of greed. You understand? The love of money is the root of all evil. So is it that you love money that much that you would give up your very core? You will destroy yourself, you will destroy your family, because make no mistake about it, the truth will find you out. You understand? So when I have to make decisions, what is inside of me, I look up, and everything else becomes nothing, nothing of significance, because how you do anything is how you do everything. And Alina talked about people trusting you. And when you show up, they know they don't need a plan B. That is exactly how I want to operate. And that is how I have operated all of my life. And be faithful in little things, and then God will make you ruler over great things, right? And not just God, you will find favor with the right people, so that you will be able to grow and progress. And then when people look back, they're like, "But how you made it to here, and you didn't have to, to do the things that we had to do, the stealing and the conniving and the backbiting and all of those different things, and the stabbing, and no, you don't have to do that, because you're operating in your truth." You see? And this truth has been taught to you either by direct revelation from God, or by your parents, you understand, by their modeling and so on. Or you will just think of your newspaper and your face being plastered every single time, and you know what you have to do. So, yeah.
Definitely. Even as we start the wind down, I want to share another viewpoint, and then I'm going to ask you ladies if you have any closing thoughts to share before we close the convo this evening. But one of the winding down thoughts we have here from Roll says, integrity has intrinsic value regardless of the expected benefit or loss. And I think that complements really well, even with what Stacey shared about we must do the right thing even if it hurts, because integrity, it has intrinsic value regardless of the expected benefit or loss. Simone, any closing thoughts to share?
Yes. Michelle made a really good point about getting to your core, right? This is why the foundation is so important. And for a lot of persons, that foundation comes from parents. They were the first models that we had. The thing with operating in integrity and making the right choices is that sometimes at the moment, depending on what it is, it cannot be clear, it could appear blurry, it may seem gray. So that it always has to be something that we practice. As Michelle said, be faithful in little things. How you do the small things is how you will do the big things. I remember doing a course on unethical decision making. I was gung ho, listen to me. If that person made that decision, they were wrong. But this course was telling you, you have bad apples, which are people themselves. You have bad barrels, like when you have apples in a barrel. The barrel could be bad, and that causes the apple to be bad because of the environment. And then they also talk about the water in the barrel, which relates to the system that the apple is operating in. So, like Alina's experience at that organization, their systems were in such a way as to want to influence the apple, who is Alina, or it could be the whole barrel, right? The whole value system of the organization. That could have been what was flawed, which is why we have to come back, like Michelle said. You have to know at your core, this is your value system, and you have to remind yourself. Me as a parent, I would tell my children, I have two daughters who are employed, and I tell them, make sure what you do, you operate in integrity. And I break it down for them because, we may use the word, people may hear the word, but you have to actually give them the practical understanding so that they can draw from it. So I would say to my daughter, and I would pray over her as well, Lord, she's dealing with money, let her balance descent. I tell her, if someone brings a document to you, it's not complete, something is missing, do not allow yourself to say yes to it. So I believe even having the conversation, speaking it out, giving the examples is necessary, even when we are adults, even when we do have that foundation, because we are apples, but we do exist in a barrel with water, which represents the system that we live in. So that's what I would share.
Thank you, Simone. Michelle, do you have any closing thoughts to share?
Yes. When you develop core values, it means that you are now accountable either to yourself, to someone in society, or to your creator, you see? And it depends on what formed those core values in the first place, or what influenced or shaped them. So that is the person or the source that you'll be accountable to, right? And when that happens, you have to understand that you will only be fooling yourself if you do not operate in line with what is central to you. And I don't know how else to put it, because you see, looking up is one principle. Doing it well with your hands is another principle. Sleeping well at night is even greater, right? And so once you are at peace with a decision that you have made, you understand? And once you understand that you have to put value on things, but you prioritize people, you understand, your fellow men, you wouldn't rob yourself, so why would you rob somebody else? Those kinds of exchanges, I think once that is clear, you are definitely operating in integrity, and life will work itself out from there. Because God is not mocked. Whatsoever you sow, you will reap.
Yeah.
You see? So that would be my closing thoughts. Just remember that you are accountable to someone, and that accountability is in line with what is core to you.
Ladies, thank you so much for coming once again to join me to chat about Chapter 20, Book Club
Yes.
Convo, Uncommon Achiever, written by Mike Murdock. Achievers in the comment section, thank you for coming out live. Did you like? Did you subscribe? Did you share? Remember, this is, you know how in COVID we have the three W's whenever Dr. Trotman shows up on television? Listen, when it's short for Book Club Conversation, we don't have three W's there, but we have 3 points. Like, share, subscribe in any order. Make sure you
Yes.
always do it because it supports the program and it helps us to continue to have reach and to keep our channel going. Ladies, have a great night. Uncommon
Thank you.
Achievers, have a great time, have a great evening, and until next time, take care.
Bye.